Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of my Gadgetzan card review. I'm gonna be doing some hunter cards, warrior cards, and Paladin cards today. Some of the ones that I haven't covered yet. I'm gonna start with hunter, Shaky Zipgunner. So this card, having this effect as a death rattle is potentially very powerful for hunter. It's a class that has access to a lot of other strong death rattles and death rattle synergy effects like N'Zoth, Barnes, and Princess Huharian. Stat-wise, if you're counting the death rattle, 3 mana for a 5/5 is very powerful, very highly above average, and snowballs minions with very uneven stats well, like Tundra Rhino and Oasis Snapjoel, but has very poor synergy with Savannah Highmane due to it stacking too many eggs in one basket, against Polymorph, Sap, and Hex. Hunters have a lot of solid 3-drops already, including Animal Companion, which is both proactive and one of the strongest cards in the game. You could fit this card into a non-Cloaked Huntress deck with Animal Companion, but probably not with both Animal Companion and Cloaked Huntress. So next we have Trogg Beastrager. Trogg Beastrager is very good with Rat Pack and Dispatch Kodo. Probably the most important thing about this card is that it allows you to add more density to Hunter's early drops. Could allow for different kinds of mana curves in Hunter. Right now, if Hunter wants to use a high amount of 1 to 3 mana minions, they have to resort to lower quality neutral minions. With Trogg Beastrager, you could run, this and Kylie Grandmother, King's Elect, Huge Toad. Maybe no Kylie Grandmother. Maybe no King's Elect since you have a higher amount of low mana minions, but you can see how you can have enough to have different kinds of mana curves with Hunter with this card. Dispatch Kodo. This card synergizes very well with Houndmaster, Trogg Beastrager, and Shaky Zipgunner. It's a high incentive card for hunters to run Grimestreet effects. That's not saying a lot so far about this card. I guess those are all the notes I have for it. It's just talking a little bit more about it. I think it's a good card. Same stats as the old Keeper of the Grove, but without the silence effect. Thing is, it's a beast, so 2/4 is nice. It has really good synergy with Houndmaster as a 2/4, and the fact that this can get better with different effects if this gets buffed, and the fact that Hunter, on 4, doesn't have good cards right now. Infested Wolf is even kind of mediocre. Barnes is the only good 4-drop for Hunter right now. So just the fact that it's a strong 4-drop means a lot here. Next, we're gonna go to Rat Pack. Okay, so Rat Pack is kind of like Hunter's version of Imp Gang Boss. That's saying a lot because Imp Gang Boss is very good. Even unbuffed, this is still stronger than Infested Wolf if you're paying 1 less mana for -1/-1. Pretty fair comparison. I would say it's a plus on the Rat Pack. Mid-range Hunter likely won't use Wolf anymore and uses Kodo and Houndmaster in 4. It has a pretty good high density of these new minions on turns 2 and 3 with Shaky Zipgunner, Trogg Beastrager, and Rat Pack. So this card synergizes very well with Grindstone buff effects in your hand, and also buff effects like Houndmaster. You can buff this after it comes into the field. It's a death rattle. I think this was likely the best Hunter card in this set. It's like a 1 card does everything kind of card. It covers a lot of your bases, giving you sticky minions, giving snowball potential because you can buff it, even giving you some just value without any synergy. It's still pretty strong. I like the design of this card a lot because it's very interesting for all player types. It's strong enough for Spikes to play it without going too crazy on synergy, just being a powerful card. Timmy can use cards like Hyena and Knife Juggler to go crazy with it. And Johnny can do really weird stuff, like a Rat Factory deck. That's really interesting. If you could use it with Feint Death with wild format, maybe with Princess Huharian, you can buff up a Rat Pack and spawn more and more really interesting Rat Factory deck, even though it's not going to be that powerful. So next we have Knuckles. Kind of a commonly recurring theme this expansion, but it has good synergy with Grimestone effects and with Houndmaster, since it's kind of weirdly budgeted as a 3/7. It's a very high risk card because it's easy to trade poorly into opponent's minions if it doesn't get buffed. Out of the 5 Hunter cards so far, Knuckles, in my opinion, looks to be the least powerful, and Rat Pack is the most powerful. Grimestreet outfitters. We have reviewed some of them, so we're going to cover a lot of the Grimestreet effects now. Compared to most Grimestreet cards. This Battle Cry is not independent of hand size. It gets better as you have more minions in your hand. The effect is, I think this Battle Cry effect is very good on cheap cards because you can draw then play this card, or you can play early when your hand size is still very high. Next we're gonna go to Smuggler's Run. This is a 1-mana Grimestreet Outfitters without the body. Compared to Grimestreet Outfitters, I would say having another body seems generally ideal, so I would rate Smuggler's Run not as good as Grimestreet Outfitters, especially since you're considering the fact that if you're running these effects, it's not your only buff. You have 2 Grimestreet Outfitters, maybe Grimestreet Enforcers, so it stacks on top of each other. Because if your second Grimestreet Outfitters might be a 2/2 or a 3/3, not even a 1/1, so not rating this as favorably as the other one. Grimskill Chum is a Murloc. So Paladin is fairly close to a solid Murloc tempo deck already due to the 1-mana 1/3s. You can have Valfin Inquisitor and Sir Finley, and Bluegills are okay, and Murloc War Leader is an amazing card. So having an extra 1-mana 2/1 that buffs a Murloc. Let's say this card is almost like a Flame Imp 1-mana 3/2, not quite as that good, but if you don't count the fact that Flame Imp hurts you. It is strictly better than Murloc Raider, a card that some would already consider in a tempo Murloc Swarm deck. You don't see these decks in top tier right now, but I would say that if you were trying to make a top tier Murloc Swarm deck, you might actually use some of the bottom tier Murlocs. So most importantly, this adds some minion density to tempo Murloc decks, so they don't have to use low quality minions. Nothing super amazing, but certainly ups the lowest quality minion that you're using. Grimestreet Enforcer. So this card, if +1 on a minion can be compared to the -1 mana of a card from Emperor Thorazon, the mana to body ratio is actually a little bit better than Emperor, since I'd rather pay 5 mana for a 4/4 than 6 mana for a 5/5. It's 1 mana less expensive than Mistcaller, but only affects hand. But then also compared to Mistcaller, it could stick around. So 5 mana for 4/4 and a delayed effect means that it's unlikely to stick for multiple turns. It doesn't buff all your minions on the field. So when you're playing it, you're not really taking over the board, so not likely to survive. One interesting thing to note about Grimestreet effects is, I'm going to talk a lot about all of them here in this card. If you have enough AoE Grimestreet effects like Smuggler's Run, Outfitters, and Enforcer, it means that even though each of these minions is attached to a weaker body, say you play early Grimestreet Outfitters, then this card becomes a 5 mana for a 5/5 later, and you can effectively get these battle cries for free because 5 mana for 5/5 is already decent. So you're paying maybe 1 weak minion on turn 2, and then from there on, all these cards can snowball each other, making the next Grimestreet Outfitters pretty strong as well. This card is much more expensive than Grimestreet Outfitters and Smuggler's Run, meaning you can frequently run into hand size problems this late in the game for the effect. One last note for this card is that I'm going to try to solve the hand size problem. Acolyte of Pain could be a really good missing link for these kind of Paladin Grimestreet AoE effects because it's a very good buff target. Buff an Acolyte of Pain is worth more than buffing normal minions, allowing for potentially more card draw if buffed, and keeps hand size high for all these effects to stack off of each other. And also, Acolyte of Pain has really good synergy with Blessing of Kings, so I could see you running that as your proactive 3-drop in these kind of Grimestreet effects together. It's like a really nice kind of snowbally thing, since these mid-range Grimestreet effect cards need late game potential as well. You need to keep your hand size high. So that's something very interesting I thought of. Anyways, Grimestreet Protector. So this is a jack of all trade cards. I think the Taunt and Battlecry together protect smaller minions, enabling them to do more. Even only targeting one other minion, this card still gets decent to good value for the mana cost. Compare to something like Sunwalker 6 mana 4/5 Divine Shield Taunt. This is Taunt, Divine Shield, another minion. So it's cost 1 more mana, but the body is better. It's probably better to give a minion on the battlefield already Divine Shield compared to something like Sunwalker, which can get pinged off before you can have the immediate one. In the past, Divine Shield effects like Argent Protector and Seal of Champions each have had their own weaknesses, often not making the cut in top tier decks. Coghammer was probably the best Divine Shield effect in the past, and even Coghammer was outshone by Muster for battle in that slot. Paladin having access to potentially very powerful Divine Shield Battlecry can force opponents to respect Divine Shield plays much more. People generally don't respect Divine Shield plays if you're not running them, so if people are running this a lot, then they have to play differently. Downside some is that it does have similar problems to Defender Vargas in the sense that it requires 2 minions to be alive as late as turn 7 to be fully effective, but we did say that even with 1 minion it's still decent. Paladin does want very versatile Jack of all trade cards due to having little reach, so Paladin can't end the game after taking the board as fast as something like Temple Mage can, or Hunter. And this is both a very good offensive and defensive card together because it gives you taunt, protects your smaller minions, giving Divine Shield. It's a very Jack of all trades card. It's pretty powerful. Looks very good. Also, after Dr. Boom left, Standard seems to be a very lack of strong 7 drops. We're gonna do actually one Warlock card because it's the only Warlock card that's been... Well, actually, there's been more, but I haven't reviewed the other ones yet, so this is one we actually have reviewed already. Okay, so Abyssal Enforcer. It's Hellfire in a body. Control Warlock can always use another high-quality AoE, should see lots of play in Reno Warlock. It's much stronger than Dread Infernal since you pay 1 more for 2 more AoE damage. 3 damage is really relevant on any turn. Yeah, so, if you play this on turn 10, turn 12, turn 15, it's always going to have a very relevant battle cry against certain decks. Whereas 1 damage AoE from Dread Infernal, not so much. Reno Lock does have a lack of 7 drops at the moment, and very many 6 drops, since a lot of the best units are 6. Karen, Sylvanas, Emperor. So it makes the higher mana cost a little bit less hurting, like a little bit less weighted, since you don't really have anything to do on turn 7 other than to play 2 minions or off curve, like life tap 5. It means a little bit, but yeah, I think it's going to be played a lot in any Reno Lock deck, especially since Reno Mage and Warlock and Priest is getting a lot of new cards. The Cabal faction is Reno based, like Highlander based. Okay, so a couple of warrior cards here. Grimey Gadgeteer. This effect is concentrated into 1 minion, so it has a different dynamic than hitting your whole hand like some of the Paladin cards, or giving just 1 minion +1/+1. I think it sets up very well into Doppelganger, but the effect targets a random minion in your hand. Since the body is pretty underwhelming, I see this card more of a combo activator rather than a tempo minion, and 4/3 is a lot worse than 3/4 in a kind of combo deck, because you're trying to survive until you combo. So I don't think that this card is very good. Next we have Stolen Goods. This card, it curves very well. The Fierce Monkey can create a 6/7 taunt on turn 3. I think the Curator package fits very well here, because Curator, not only is it have synergy with Fierce Monkey, the Curator also has synergy with Stolen Goods, being a taunt minion itself. One thing to note is this card doesn't work with Twilight Guardian. Does not work. One problem is this buff card is all front-loaded, meaning buff effects I feel like are best to play on minions that stick around on the board, and then you can buff into a trade. So say you have a 2/2, they play a 4/4, you can Blessing Kings and trade. Since this is all front-loaded immediately into the minion, it's very weak to hard removal, unless your minion also has charge, which I don't think can really happen. Taunt chargers don't really exist. So it's bad for control, adding to the last point, due to low minion density in control decks. So your opponent's going to have hard removal left over, and they can spend it on your Stolen Goods minion. You're putting a lot of eggs in one basket. Control doesn't want to expose itself to too many honest minion trades either, so you're playing a big minion, and you're opening yourself up to minion trades, which favors the attacker. So you want to have initiative with minions a lot of times. So I think this is more of a tempo warrior card, maybe a tempo curator monkey kind of minion rather than anything you would consider in a control deck. Okay, next we have Ali Armorsmith. It doesn't trade very well, even into relatively small minions. It trades okay against like 3/2s, but I'm talking about even something in like 3/3s or 3/4s, 3 drops. I'll have 2 drops of 2 health. So it doesn't really trade well, even into relatively small minions. This card you're likely going to leave up an enemy board, but create board states favorable for AoE, and should usually add a decent amount of armor to top it off. Since 2/7's not likely finishing all the minions, but it's likely leaving them damaged for Revenge, Ravaging Ghoul, and Whirlwind effects. One thing to note is that I don't know if this is really a replacement for Ironforge Portal in some ways, because they're both 5 mana, give some armor minions, give a minion, but it doesn't have Shield Slam combo potential compared to Ironforge Portal, because the armor gain, it mostly happens during your opponent's turn, leading to them also being able to peel off your armor before ending their turn. You know, you can't just play Ally Armorsmith, Shield Slam immediately, he kind of like sticks during its armor, but that kind of stuff is much less comboable with Shield Slam, so I feel like this is a card that you would still need to run enough like Bash, Shield Block, Ironforge Portal effects to make Shield Slam good. Kind of means I don't really see it being played in Control Warrior too much. Maybe in some kind of combo where it has a lot of health for Battle Rage, some kind of Patron deck maybe as a replacement for Armorsmith, because it could be even better. Like Armorsmith, the normal Armorsmith's kind of considered in those Battle Rage decks, but this could be a better version, actually. Very interesting, but don't really see it being played in purely control decks. Next, we have Grimestreet Pawnbroker. Giving a weapon +1/+1 has a higher impact than giving a minion +1/+1. Technically, it should. Like, I think a +1/+0 on a minion, or sorry, a +1/+0 on a weapon has a similar effect to a +1/+1 on a minion, since, say, you give your 3/3 minion into a 4/4, you can give your Fire War Axe +1/+0 and can still kill it. So it's really the damage that matters for that. But then you also get a free durability as well. But then on the other hand, there's much less weapons than minions to choose from, and it does have a hard time naturally curving into high quality weapons. If we're talking about standard, not Death Spite. It does have very high synergy with Fool's Bane in particular, making the weapon go from 12 to 20 damage, and you can also use Fool's Bane quickly, so that one durability matters more. Compared to Ravaging Ghoul, it has Upgrade attached to the body instead of Whirlwind. Upgrade has been played in aggro warriors in the past, and the fact that this upgrade is slower than normal because it doesn't upgrade stuff that's already equipped, it upgrades weapons in hand, is not a good sign. Good synergy with Arcanite Reaper for this style of play, but then you could just normally play Arcanite Reaper on turn 5, then upgrade it with Bloodsail Corsair, or upgrade on turn 6, and you only lose one line. That line only loses 1 damage compared to front-loading the upgrade with Grimestreet Pawnbroker, since you can Arcanite Reaper face immediately, and then you can upgrade it still next turn before swinging. So not super favorable rating card, not a super good card. Whirlwind is kind of a more common effect for warriors than upgrade is, so I don't think it's anywhere close to as good as Ravaging Ghoul. Last swear card for today is Brass Knuckles. So 2 damage weapons going to turn 4 generally have very low impact on the board state, so this weapon should probably go face to have highest value, since swinging into minions this late in the game for so little damage costs you too much health. For face damage, I feel like there's better alternatives, slow, then also giving, I don't see anywhere this card belongs. Pretty bad ratings from me for Brass Knuckles. Okay, so that is all we have today. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back with part 3, reviewing a lot of mage cards and neutrals that I haven't gone over, as well as some of the Warlock cards that I haven't reviewed yet.